Hey, Jesse, it's your friend Jay Armstrong from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm just calling to wish you and St. Bruce a happy birthday. I am so humbled to have been a part of the podcast for so many years. And I guess the one question I have to ask for you is, does Mary still get in the car? Happy birthday, buddy. And congratulations. Keep up the good work. See ya. Bye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and joining me is a return guest who may be walking on sunshine, floating in the air. Rachel is freshly back from going to New York and seeing a little show on Broadway. How you doing?
Oh my goodness. It's been so crazy. I think this past Wednesday, I think that was, or wait, no, today's Wednesday. Oh my goodness. Today makes 3 weeks exactly since I saw Springsteen on Broadway. So my whole life, man, that was such a whirlwind in the best way. Like seriously, like the best experience of my life. But yeah,
and there's so much to get into, and we will get to it all. And please, if I forget something, remind me. But just in case this is their first episode, why don't you tell my listeners a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I'm 21. A lot of my little Twitter friends, probably if you've seen my tweets, odds are it was Mills related. But anyway, my whole introduction into Bruce started back when I was 19. It was my freshman year of college, and I feel like I always talk about depression so much whenever I'm on here, but it's because it's such a big part of my life, and it really truly was kind of the whole reason, I guess, for my whole like really deep dive into Bruce's music. So both of my parents really big fans of his, so I grew up kind of with his music playing like frequently. So it was a big part of my childhood, but I think for me, going back to when I was 19 and like just in a really, really like deep depression, I just wanted something familiar to listen to and comforting. And so for whatever reason, I just chose to start listening to Bruce, and it became a whole thing. And so it really just escalated from there, but really, truly in the best way. Like, I don't know. It's still crazy to me to think about, because it's like, really, it was only like 2-3 years ago, but I mean, just the impact it's had and the way it's kind of like affected my life too. It just always seems crazy to me. So
Yeah, Sarah was on a show sharing about Sarah Goodwin, who wrote the great novel Beyond the Palace. And it's a love story set around a Springsteen tour. And she talked about she had lost her grandmother, and that it really, really, she was crushed because her grandmother was just everything to her. And she happened to pick up a cassette her dad had made her, and a homemade cassette, and she stumbled on Atlantic City, and she said the lyrics of, now everything died, baby, that's a fact, but maybe everything that dies someday comes back. just spoke to her with missing her grandmother, and she played that song over and over and over again, and so I do think there is, we talk about this a lot, but the music of Bruce, and especially when you know what he's fought in his depression and everything that he's been, and that music can be a tonic to your soul. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah. And
Yeah.
I always appreciate the fact that you open up, and have shared a lot of yourself on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's something that I don't know. When I first started listening to his music, I know I mentioned that kind of like need for something comforting and familiar, but I really honestly had no idea. Probably for about the first month that I was really heavily listening to his music, I had no idea about his own struggles with depression. So that for me just kind of, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have done such a deep dive like I did if I hadn't discovered that. Because to me, that was it. That was like the defining moment where, I mean, I remember hearing This Depression for the first time, and I was just like, oh my God, it truly, like, and to be completely honest, even after listening to that specific song and just, knowing his own personal side of it and just listening to his other songs, I still wasn't like, I'm not gonna, sit here and say, oh, well, that cured my depression. Like, no, obviously it was a great help, but it really just kind of, in a way, validated my experiences and then kind of allowed me to go and seek that help for myself. So I think that was a really big reflection that I came to, honestly, kind of recently, was that validation piece. So yeah, that to me is just like the biggest blessing.
So if I remember correctly, now, have you seen Bruce perform live before?
No.
Okay,
So
I didn't think so.
That was another thing. I think a lot of people were like, oh, wow, like, just some 21-year-old, never seen Bruce before. And now Springsteen on Broadway is your introduction. Like, and it is crazy, like, truly. But I seriously, I don't know. I think that in, I would say in the midst of this pandemic, I guess we still are, in the midst of it, but
yes, absolutely.
But it's been, it's been like over a year now, so I don't know. But I think that the timing, all of that to say that the timing of it, I think, was perfect for me. When I got the ticket, I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, like, if this is meant to be your first, introduction to Bruce, you will get a ticket. And if it's not, then it just wasn't meant to be. And I really leaned on the whole idea of being open to the universe, which was
sure.
A whole concept that was introduced to me, ironically, in therapy. And I hated it when I first heard it. I was like, okay, like, whatever, like, what else do I have to do? But it's like one of the things that I've really embraced. So that was that for me. And then miraculously, I got a ticket, and then I didn't even have a plan on how I was going to get to New York or anything. I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to figure it out later.
So let's walk through that. How did you get a ticket?
Okay. So I know everybody that was trying to get tickets through SeatGeek was like freaking out, like, okay, this is not the most efficient, system, whatever. And maybe it wasn't, who knows? I did something that, you get, anybody else that tried to get tickets through that, little avenue, there was a little like thing that said, oh, don't refresh it, you're still in line, whatever. Well, I was getting impatient and I was like, okay, nothing's changing, so I'm just going to refresh it. So I refreshed it and I thought I messed everything up, everything went a little crazy for a second. And then all of a sudden it was like, my place in line just totally jumped. And then it was like, okay, pick your seats. And so I was like, oh my God, I got through. So it was like, I was still in shock. I don't think I fully processed it until honestly very soon before I left for the trip. Like something in my brain just could not register like what was actually happening and how I got so lucky.
Yeah, I haven't released it yet, but I had Laura on the podcast, and she went up to, and she tells the story that because of a delay, she ended up not making the show, right? And so she was crushed. And so they ended up getting other tickets and they went back a second time. And she said, even sitting in her seat in the theater, she's like, okay, something's going to happen. Like, I'm still not going to be able to see Bruce because, the universe is going to be fighting against me. Now, who did you take?
Okay, so interesting question, because when I got my ticket, I was so like, oh my God, I just need any ticket, right? So I bought one for myself, and I kind of had this like not real clear plan of what I was going to do, but I said, you know what? I was like, my sister is like my best friend, my ride or die. I'm taking her to New York with me. I don't know that she would want to see Bruce, so I only purchased the one ticket, but she did go with me to New York. But I made Springsteen on Broadway sort of my little solo mission. But then, of course, the whole little family came together, and I had some little friends that were like, oh, I'm going this day too, or whatever, working it out like that. So it was like, I knew that even though I was going alone, I wouldn't be alone. You know what I mean? So
well, yeah. And I've been very honest that when I went during the first run, meeting Bella Pori, who's been on the podcast multiple times, was almost as exciting to me as seeing Bruce, because, just we had known each other, through the podcast, and then to meet in person, and she is just as charming and lovely, in person, and we clicked right away. There was no this awkwardness. It was just two old friends seeing each other, even though we had never met before, right?
Right.
So you not only had, and we're going to get to this, but how cool is it that you had an angel looking after you, right? Like you had kind of thrown out the universe, hey, I'm going, would love to try to meet some people, what can we do? And a little angel, one of your Twitter angels, sent a message out, didn't she?
Oh my goodness, yes. And that was absolutely just wild to me, because when I sent out that tweet, I was genuinely just like, okay, I know a few of you had mentioned that you have August 25th tickets, but I don't remember exactly who. And then in the meantime, it had been a month and a half or so of people are getting tickets. So I just wanted to see, anybody that follows me that we've, like, let's just meet in person. Like, pandemic, like, I just miss interacting with people. Like, let's just do it. And then all of a sudden it was just like this whole big thing. I remember I went to sleep and I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh my God, like my notifications were like crazy. And I was like, what happened? And sure enough, my literal angel hero, one of them, had just like completely decided to just give me like the best gift ever. And so that was really, really special to me, because I knew that I was going to be traveling with my sister, but we're both young women, and I was like, right. I've never been to New York before. What is this going to be like? So having that like instantly, like just knowing, like walking into the situation knowing, okay, I have this group of people that are going to be kind of like looking out for me more or less, was just absolutely amazing. And then meeting them in person was just even better. I cried so many times on that trip out of pure gratitude. Like, I've never had an experience like that in my life. Like, just knowing that that many people like were like willing to like, you know, work their plans around, you know, potentially meeting up or doing something, even just the, you know, the idea of it, the potential, the willingness was just like, it always blows my mind. Always. It's something I don't think I'll ever fully get used to, because the love that I receive on Twitter, honestly, is just super surreal to me.
So in case someone doesn't follow you on Twitter, when I'm talking about your angel, give specifics to them, why you were so excited.
Right. We did not name my angel, my mystery angel. So, little angel named Amy Lofgren. So I literally, it was so crazy to me too, because when she tweeted out the message, like when she retweeted, like quote tweeted, whatever it is, my original tweet, she was like, oh, you know, like maybe just like, she's like, you know, request from, you know, Nils and I. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys, like, I don't know. I feel like some people that follow me are like, oh yeah, like they know how much I love them, but truly it is not just, it goes deeper than just being a fan. Like, yes, I am a fan of, specifically just to talk about Nils real quick, like, yes, I am a fan of him as an artist, as a musician, and all of that. But I am huge fans of both of them as people. Like, they are just genuinely, I don't think I've ever, I don't know. I call them my angel heroes, because I feel like it had to have been something from beyond, just, you know, like the time that, you know, I kind of discovered both of them was just very in line with my whole healing journey. And I just felt like that was very, I don't know. I just, it's still so, I get like flustered talking about it, because I don't even know how to describe how much, like, just.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, yes, you have interacted with Amy on Twitter, but you know, this is just social interactions. I mean, it is not like you've met her. It is, you know, this is all just wonderful. And to have her say, oh, you know what, I can you take care of my friend?
Yes,
was just
that
amazing.
Was it. Yes, I forgot about that piece. She called, she's like, oh, this is our friend, and she tagged me, and you know, and I don't know, that to me was just absolutely wild. Like, no, I haven't met her, but I, you know, I that's the thing. That's why I think that, you know, people have this kind of misconception of, oh, if you know somebody through social media, you don't really know them, and you know, you can't really build real friendships. And it's like, yes, you have to be careful. You're never going to know somebody 100%. Like, I just had somebody a few weeks ago reply to one of my tweets saying, you know, you seem like a lovely person, but you know, all you ever do talk about Nils and Amy. Like, don't you have other interests? And I was like, to that kind of shocked me. I've never received a message like that before. But, you know, I explained in response to that person, I just said, well, you know, it is social media, and I'm a very multifaceted person. And you're not going to see every side of me from social media. I do try my best to be as transparent and authentic as I possibly can convey on social media, but you're not going to get everything. But that being said, I think that, you know, those friendships and those connections are very, very real. And I really, really got to experience that firsthand on this trip, when I got to meet some of these people in person that I had, you know, had some sort of interaction with on Twitter.
Yeah. And to talk about that a little bit, and, you know, Penn Jillette from Penn and Teller talked about, and this was years ago, about he could see 100 people saying how good he is at something or how much they enjoy his work. And if one person says something negative, that just breaks his heart and he focuses on that.
Yes.
And I still, to this day, there is if you go to iTunes and you look up Set Listing Bruce, there is a 1-star review that says that this guy, the host, tends to repeat himself a lot and tells the same stories, and maybe he should work up a frequently asked questions. And I think that's why sometimes I'll say when I'm interviewing someone, like, my listeners, you've probably heard this a lot, so go ahead and skip ahead 5 minutes, because I'm hearing this guy in my mind, I'm remembering this. And so and it's easy for me to say to you that, F them, it's your Twitter timeline. And if you want to send nothing but, Neil's and Amy tweets, you say it right there in your bio, basically a fan podcast, right? I mean, you say that.
I do.
And so you, in a lot of ways you go, okay, hey, if I was charging you a subscription where you paid, $20 a month, well, then maybe I'd have some input on you, but guess what? I'm not. And, move along. You don't like what I'm saying, then just move somewhere else.
Exactly. I mean, that one kind of caught me off guard because, okay, like, honestly, yes, I have had some things said to me that, one that comes to mind is somebody telling me, I don't remember what I was on. Somebody must have said something mean about Nils.
Yeah.
And I apparently had time that day to tweet some sort of response to this person.
Right.
And it all kind of resulted in this person telling me that, I'm worshiping washed up rock stars that are, so much older than me. And what was the other one? It was like, I don't remember what the other part of that was, but that's all of that is to just say, like, I think that those are funny. I mean, they're funny to me now because it's like, okay, like and that's something that's not new to me, like specifically the age part, like, okay, why are you so, like, I don't know what people think of whatever it is. It doesn't matter to me really, because ultimately I have the biggest issue with people that put down things that are making other people happy. As long as you're not harming anybody by doing your thing, I don't see an issue with somebody talking about what they love. Maybe it's not my thing, maybe I don't love it, but right. I would never go out of my way to tell that person that I don't like that, or that, why are they doing that, or question them, or, I mean, it's all just so stupid, because it's just like you said, yes, it is in my bio. So yeah, if you didn't want to see those tweets, then maybe, don't engage. But also, I mean, like you said, again, it does impact you, and you do start kind of overanalyzing, like, okay, well, maybe I do this and maybe it's a problem, maybe it's bad, and maybe I need to change it. But I mean, as soon as I kind of took a step back and, rationalized the situation a little bit, I was like, okay, you do talk about them a lot because they have tremendously impacted your life in a really good way. There's nothing wrong with that. And also, I do talk about other things. I mean, not that and this was my biggest point with this particular situation, was that I felt like, why should I have to prove myself? I'm not going to tell this person, well, actually, right, I talk about this, this, and this, because I didn't feel that it, really warranted an explanation. But I know that I do have obviously other interests and other things going on in my life. But yeah, I can relate to that. That one negative kind of does stick with you for a little bit.
Yeah, it does. So you're planning to go into New York. You got your partner, your sister's going to enjoy, well, not the show, but the actual trip. So you've got your best friend there. So, who all were you able to meet?
Okay, so it was actually very sweet because as soon as Amy kind of put the word out on Twitter, lots of people kind of, I don't even know how they did it. Well, I know how they did it. It was the Spring Nuts whole group and
Yeah,
how they all on the Facebook page, which I don't have a Facebook, so
right.
this was all arranged. Honestly, not that I even would have been directly included in this part, but anyway, they set up like a whole little like who's going what day type of thing.
Right.
And then they passed along my phone number. We all exchanged phone numbers. There was a group chat with a bunch of people in it that were all going to be going on that same night. So it was nice because I got to kind of, like just kind of interact with them a little bit before we all even got there. So it was nice to kind of build up that little relationship ahead of time. And then so we all had planned to go to dinner before the actual show, and so that was really, really fun. And it was like you had mentioned, like, when you're meeting people that you only know through social media, you do worry about that initial awkwardness, but there was really none of that. I mean, it truly was everything I expected. That super welcoming, super friendly environment. And just, I mean, my sister came to the dinner too, and they were just so like, she kept saying, oh, well, I'm not really in the group, but and they kept correcting her, like, no, like, you are, like, it's a family, like. And I was like, that's the biggest, like, I don't know, the biggest like reward, honestly, of that whole thing was just that they were so welcoming, like I expected. I really, didn't expect anything bad, but to just be that, like, to just feel that supported was just honestly indescribable. I don't have anything to compare it to because I've never experienced anything like it, but I was able to meet with them, and they actually kept it. I didn't know how he was going to the dinner. Like, I got there and I was like, hi, introduce myself, and everybody else at the table introduces themselves, and he wasn't there yet. And then somebody kind of, started talking about it. And then I heard somebody else go, oh, shh, like it was a secret. They were trying to kind of keep it like, all like hush hush from me, but it was really sweet. Like, just being able to like meet the person that made the whole thing happen. I was like, thank you so much. It was so nice, especially in the times of COVID, being able to meet people in person, tell them in person, like, how grateful you are, or just how nice it is to even just be able to just meet at all. Like, I just felt super, super lucky. And then right before the actual show, I got to meet two more friends. I think it was just two. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, which was interesting because I was like, I had so Stephanie, if you listen to this, hey, but she I met her before the show because we had been kind of talking to each other on Twitter, like, hey, we're both going this same night, and so I met her briefly before the show, and then while we were talking, somebody else came up to me and he was like, oh, hi. He's like, I'm assuming you're Rachel. He's like, I see your tweets all the time. Like, just wanted to say hi. And I was like, oh, hi, Joe. Like, I forgot you're here too. Like, it was so weird, like, knowing, like having somebody know who I was and me know who they are. And it's like all of our interactions have been on Twitter. It was a very weird, but very, very good experience. And honestly too, like on a like more like superficial note, I guess, it did just make me, I felt a little bit famous. They all had me feeling like a little bit like a celebrity.
Good for you. Absolutely. That's nice. So you got, a great dinner. You got to meet a lot of people. I'm not surprised at all, but I love to hear that they were inclusive with your sister and like, no, this is okay. So you go into the you go into the theater, Rachel, what are you thinking? What are
Oh my
you?
God.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about this.
All right. So I was like already like shaking like before I even got in the theater. So I'm digging through my wallet. I know I have my vaccine card like on me, like ready to go. But I'm so like just excited and anxious that I'm like, like it's taken me a minute. And I remember the guy going, just relax. You're about to see the boss. And I was like,
oh, I love that.
do you understand what you just said to me? I was like, how can I relax? Like, I'm going to be like, he's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Like, and I just couldn't believe it. So I get in and I like go up, and now I had a balcony seat, which honestly, there was no such thing as a bad seat in that theater.
Yes, I've heard that from both theaters. I know when I was at the original theater, I went, oh man, everything would have been a great. So I have no doubt that this is, great to see.
Absolutely. I mean, as soon as I got into my seat, I took a picture, and it was so cute too to have people following my little journey. Like that was so fun for me to kind of document it all. But yeah, I had a really, really good seat. Like I said, every seat was a good seat. So I get there and I'm just like trying to just, compose myself a little bit. So there's just like all kinds of nervousness, excitement, just all of that energy, just kind of waiting for, like this big thing to happen. So I still don't think I really processed it until he stepped on stage. Like something just I just couldn't fully process what was going on until that happened. So
Rachel, I assume you had watched it on Netflix, so you had seen the original run. Had you read articles and found out the changes he had made?
No, so I sort of did that deliberately. I know the last time I was on the podcast, I talked about this. I wasn't actively avoiding, any spoilers of any sort, but I really was not seeking them out either. So I kind of just wanted it, especially with it being my first Bruce experience. I really wanted to just walk in, just, knowing absolutely nothing. And, like you said, I had watched the original run, but honestly, I hadn't even watched it in a while. So it was kind of like, even the stuff that was like, oh yeah, I remember that. That's the same. It was still kind of almost like seeing it with fresh eyes. So that was really exciting.
That's good. So the lights dim, I assume that they did similar to what mine is. Please turn off your cell phones, and da 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 da. And all of a sudden, there he is.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So talk about it.
Oh my God. Okay. So I cried before he even got on stage at all. I just couldn't believe the whole, combination of, the fact that I was even able to be there, and just the energy, the environment, the anticipation, just all of it. But once he walked on stage, and there truly is nothing in this world like hearing him live. Like I just instantly knew that. Like he honestly didn't even have to sing anything yet, just walk out, and I knew it was not going to be like anything else in this world. So obviously very excited, but I think for me at this, seeing the show at the time that I did, being the age that I am, I think that the introduction of growing up was really, really just really struck me even more than I think, I think obviously in general, it's just gonna have an impact on people oh, what a great introduction to the show. And it is. but it really, really resonated with me. So that just made it all the more special for that first little, introduction.
Absolutely. Yes. Did so I know it's hard to get through. So do you have moments that stand out, the songs that especially were meaningful to you? Talk about some of the highlights.
Yeah, okay. So I'm glad I wrote them down because I really would have been like, oh my gosh, it was so amazing. I don't remember. But I'm like I mentioned growing up, okay, I knew going in that I said, okay, if he keeps my father's house in the show, I'm going to like lose it. Like I know I'm going to. So I did, but I was still able to, keep my composure a little bit. But that was just, to me, I won't go too deep into it, but the storytelling aspect of the show in general, specifically with that song, really, really, really clicked with me. And it was almost like another validating experience, like I talked about earlier with the whole depression thing. That to me was just like hearing somebody that I like love and admire and just am just constantly in awe of talk about things that I can personally relate to was and to hear it live no less was just, I seriously don't even know how to describe it. Like that was definitely a highlight for me in a super emotional but super validating way. And then another one was, so my hometown, when he played that again, I was like, okay, just like the other show. Like, and honestly, yeah, a lot of it was the same, which I loved personally.
Sure, yeah.
But my hometown in particular was special to me because that is one of the songs that I have the clearest memory of hearing in terms of like one of my first times hearing Bruce, like when I was a child, like 3 years old, like in our old house in Cleveland, like sitting on the porch with the music blaring where it's always summertime. Like those memories are just like my real introduction to Bruce, I guess, but also just, just really good childhood memories in general. So that was super special. And one of the songs that really was a highlight for me that I did not expect was The Promised Land. So I think that for that one, it was the lead up, the story little lead up to that song. Just him talking about being young and having your whole life ahead of you, and just he talks the one particular part of the show that also really got me was, and like again also in the initial run, but when he talks about just when he leaves Freehold and he's laying on the back of the truck and he's just talking about feeling grateful to be alive. For me, as somebody that struggles with depression but is also a young person, those moments are sort of rare for me, but when I have them, there's nothing like it in the world. So
sure,
that like that specific storyline before hearing that song was just so powerful for me, and it was just totally like perfect timing. Like I needed to hear it and I needed to connect with it because like I said, I really hadn't before. I mean, it's a good song. I like it, but I didn't expect it to be a highlight. So that was another really, really like just prominent moment from the show.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So you got I'll See You in My Dreams, but you didn't get Born to Run. So what's your feelings on that?
Okay, so I was a little surprised. He played Fender Road, which beautiful, amazing. I always think of my mom when I hear that song because that's her favorite Bruce song. So and she's never seen Bruce either, and she wasn't able to go with me to Springsteen on Broadway. So that was a little sad for me, a little, you know, bittersweet moment. Like, yes, I'm here and I'm having the time of my life, but you know, my mom,
Sure.
who obviously I'm super close to, and she's just like super special to me, isn't having the same experience. But that to me felt like, okay, that was my moment where I got to kind of think about her. But so we didn't get Born to Run. I was a little bit like, I don't even think disappointed is the right word, because it's Bruce. And for me, I got more than I ever could have wanted out of that experience.
Makes sense. Yes.
But Born in the USA was a whole nother emotional just mess.
Tell me why.
It was very similar to the the Netflix, the original run.
Yeah.
Show. And okay, so I go to Kent State, and I, before COVID, was involved in the May 4th task force. So
yeah,
my knowledge on the I guess, I don't know, general atmosphere of the country in during the Vietnam era is, pretty good, I would say. So having that kind of knowledge and stuff, and being a Bruce fan and hearing the song and understanding the lyrics, I think it just made it even more powerful to hear it live, in the version that he played it in, because to me that was just like, it almost, and this goes for a lot of the show, it kind of takes you out of time. So
yeah,
every single song honestly put me in a different world. So that one was particularly powerful, just because obviously it's a super emotional thing. And, I remember watching it on Netflix and, being emotional then, but to hear it live is just a whole nother experience. And kind of in the same, holding on to that same theme, I guess, when he played 41 Shots and then The Rising.
Yes.
Those two, I did not expect him to play. So that was super, super powerful, obviously, just because of the content of the songs, but also just, with the state of the country, and, the fact that it's ironic. We were actually just talking about that specific case in one of my classes tonight, and of course I brought up Bruce, but the fact that was, 21, 22 years ago, and it's like, you could pretty much write that song and it would pretty much be relevant for any time period, is just, it just adds that extra layer of emotion to it. So that was really, really just, I don't know. I don't want to call it a highlight, but definitely another powerful moment within the show. And then obviously The Rising as well. And I kind of at the time didn't comprehend like how close it was when I saw the show to September 11th. And I was only one when September 11th happened.
Right.
So I really don't have, the only, knowledge that I have is whatever I hear from other people or read or see or whatever. So I think that to me, that was really powerful, because it almost made it real to somebody that was not old enough to really comprehend it.
Right.
So, I mean, and of course, in typical Bruce fashion, he just makes it sort of, like I said, just that out of time, out of world kind of experience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do anything disappoint you? And I know that's a dumb thing to ask, but
no, it's not dumb. I get it.
Yeah.
But honestly, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, like I said, anything that I could have expected, I walked in with, honestly, no expectations, because it was my first Bruce experience, like I've said, and I just, Springsteen on Broadway, that whole kind of intimate setting alone lends itself to being just totally unprecedented, like don't know what you're gonna get type of thing. I mean, to some degree you do, but at the same time you know nothing. So I was not disappointed at all. Another highlight that I forgot to mention was, so obviously, like I said, never saw Bruce live, which also means I've never seen Patty live. So when she walked on stage, from my balcony seat, like I had my mask on, obviously, but I was like, oh my God, Rachel, like close your mouth, because I could not stop staring at her. She is so like breathtakingly gorgeous. Like I seriously was just like, yeah, I know you're about to sing, but like, oh my God, like I don't know. To me, that was like another unexpected thing for me. Like I knew that it was going to be super, super add to the specialness, add to the, just, I don't even know the word, just absolutely amazing experience that she, that you're going to get to see her too. But I mean, it truly is just a whole nother experience getting that, just firsthand seeing it live. Like, oh my God, I'm still like processing it. So.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is so great. And I was lucky enough when I was there, I got to see her, sing, and I know he did different songs the nights she couldn't be there. But yeah, I agree with you.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, what did you do after the show?
Oh, okay. So after the show,
did you, is there anything I left off that you wanted to talk about the show that I didn't ask you?
I know as soon as I end this, I'm going to be like, I should have mentioned that, and I should have mentioned that, and I should have mentioned that. But everything that I have written down, we discussed. Oh, except for Land of Hope and Dreams. That's been, I think, the very first time I was on the podcast, which feels like forever ago. I feel like I was such a baby. But I know that I did mention that as one of my favorite songs of his, or just one of, the most impactful songs. And it, that's still true. But I think, hearing that was just like, that to me brought the whole community family aspect of it all together for me. Like, I had gotten that, like, luckily, I had gotten that kind of sense of family and community before the show, but hearing that, and it really, that was, I think, also the moment where I was like, God, I can't wait for like live music to be fully back. Like there were so many songs where I was looking at the people around me that obviously I didn't know. Like I would get up and sing and dance with you right now if we could. Like that to me, I wanted to get out of my seat. And I mean, obviously it's like Springsteen on Broadway, so the setting is very different. But I mean, it just really, like, it made my desire for that even stronger. So that was just another, honestly, highlight, because it did keep me hopeful for the future.
Yeah, I can imagine that. That's awesome. So all right, after the show, you're on a Springsteen high.
Oh. I was. And so, he's, the show's over, everybody's clapping, all of that. And I say, you know what? I said, I'm in the top, like, balcony seats. I said, but you know what? I said, I can be really fast running downstairs. So I said, I'm going to book it, and I'm going to see just how close I can possibly maybe get. I didn't know if I was going to miss him, or, if I was even going to get to see him at all. But I was like, it's worth a shot, Rachel, just do it. And I booked it down all of these stairs. Now, it's like the way the stairs are in that theater, it's kind of like a spiral. So like I was a little dizzy, but I was like, it doesn't matter, it's worth it. And so I race down the stairs and I get out there, and, there's people already, lined up and stuff. And I kind of, get my way in there. And then I wind up, like, when he walks out, wind up being like, you know, I wasn't the closest to him that I could have been, but I was very, very close. And all of my pictures are absolutely terrible because I was shaking so bad that I was like, oh my God, it's Bruce. And I was like, and I always said, you know, if I ever got in close proximity with Bruce, you know, well, what would I say to him? What would, you know, even if it's just shouting, like, what am I going to say? And, you know, in my head, I thought, oh, I'm going to sound so, you know, eloquent and put together. And I'm going to be like, wow, thank you so much for talking about your depression. So as he's getting in his car or in the car, you know, I'm like, okay, Rachel, this is your moment. Just whatever you're going to shout it now.
Right.
And all shout is just like, I love you. And I'm like, all right, Rachel, well, whatever. So it worked. But it was just like, it was such a surreal experience. So just beyond anything that I could have ever imagined. And then immediately after the show, so I walked back to the hotel and I walked back with one of the like Spring Nut little cuties, Lori, who actually got one of the guitar picks from that show.
Oh, nice.
So I was very, very excited for her. And I was telling her on our walk back, like, you know, like, I'm so, so genuinely happy for you. Like, so glad that you had such like a personal experience. Like, that's so cool, you know? And she was like, you know, she's like, thank you. She's like, and I know you really mean it. And then she brought up the whole, you know, nobody wins unless everybody wins. And I was like, that really, to me, like, yes, we say that all the time. Yes, it's a thing. But I think to have like an in-person interaction with somebody and be able to have that kind of an experience in person was just so just like rewarding to me. And it just made me feel even more grateful than I already did. And it was just all around, no part of that trip was bad. All of it was amazing.
That's awesome.
Regardless of whether, you know, it was people that I was able to meet in person or people that were just super, super kind to me on Twitter that were like, oh, I've been loving following your little journey. Like, that truly means the world to me. And I don't think that I could ever accurately express like how much it means to me, but genuinely I see every reply that people replied to those tweets with. Like, I read all of them, like I saw them, like, you know, like I just feel so lucky.
Yeah. And I felt such a joy following you on Twitter and knowing that you're going on this journey and knowing that, you know, you were not only, you know, did Amy kind of bless you and go, hey, let's take care of my girl. She called me my girl. She called me. I mean, you know.
I was like, oh my God.
And
she
then
called me a couple times. I said, oh my God, you have to stop because I am blushing.
Yes. And then to go and have a good time and to see, you know, anytime you can see Bruce perform live is great. But with all this pandemic and everything going on, a chance to go and to see him and have him, you know, make fun of himself. And, you know, this is a lighter show than, you know, the Netflix show a little bit. It was just it's such a blessing. And I'm so happy for you. And I just am thrilled. And I hope that in 2022, when we get another tour, that we will work it out somehow where you and I can meet in person and exchange hugs and just, you know, kind of make in person what we've been able to do through social media and through being on the podcast.
Yes, I would love that. That was my, like I mentioned, at the end of the show, I was just like, God, I just want to, like, this was so great. And like you said too, I mean, with COVID and everything, the timing, the fact that I was able to go and do this. And then, you know, with I mean, I really got so lucky in the timing because like a week after I had gone was when all of the flooding and everything had happened. So I felt beyond blessed that it all worked out so beautifully for me. But also, like you said, that whole interaction aspect, I seriously cannot wait to just meet more people that I've made connections with And even people that I haven't, like, I would gladly, like, this pandemic and Springsteen on Broadway experience really made me truly be like, I would like, it's a Bruce show. If it's a Bruce show, like, even if you're dancing with a stranger, like Dancing with Strangers, they're not strangers.
Yeah.
Like, it's all family. Like, so
Yeah.
I just can't wait to get to have that experience again.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Rachel, thank you so much for taking time and being here. And I'm so happy and so thrilled that you joined me. Let's keep me posted. If someone wants to follow you on Twitter, let me know.
Okay, so yeah, so my Twitter is at Rachel, Rachel _BERC. So thank you so much, Jesse. It's always so fun. I love talking on this podcast. I know I kind of probably rambled a little bit
No,
here and
you
there,
don't.
but oh, it's just so fun. I always enjoy myself, and you're such a great host. You make it so comfortable. So
Well,
thank
and
you.
don't forget, if you decide that you're going to have a Neil's podcast, I know you've got school going on, but
Yeah.
like I'm right there. I'm ready to support you and get your guest, and y'all, you can interview and talk, and I will put it out on Set Less Than Goose and support you 100%. And I just want to also say that I appreciate that you share your ups and downs on social media, and not to, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me, but so that other people know that all of us struggle at different times. All of us have hard days and hard times, right? And by sharing that, hey, today was a good day, or today was a little tough, and giving us a chance to help each other, I think just makes a difference. And I'm proud to call you my friend.
Oh my God, that is so sweet. Thank you so much. No, that's always my goal. If it helps one person, it's enough. And I don't know. For me, there's no room for any type of shame in any of it. So it's something that I'm just super passionate about. And also on that, on the other end of that, it's like, I just feel grateful that people are so willing to, go through all my ups and downs with me and, just be there to support me. I've seriously never could have expected the kind of responses that I get. So seriously, I just, from the bottom of my heart, I'm so grateful for you, for everybody else that has supported me and just shown me a crazy amount of love. So thank you.
Well, I am just so glad that we are part of each other's lives, and I wish you the best. And I'm sure finish up this semester strong, and then whatever you decide to do post graduation, I know you're going to do great at. And then I look forward to having you back on the podcast to share more journeys.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, listeners, you please go get vaccinated. Go be safe. Let's remember to wear our masks. Let's remember to wash our hands and social distance, and let's be good to each other, because that's the only way we're going to get through this. For now, thank you, Rachel. Thank you, listeners, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlessingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlessingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlessingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Lessing Bruce shirts, as well as a Mary Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now, who does? You can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only, Set Listing Bruce. Set Listing Bruce is part of the Southgate Media podcast group. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.